Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. Yuan Shikai played a crucial role in the history of modern China, both on the political stage and in the development of historical events. In his early years, Yuan Shikai's career began on the Korean peninsula. After returning to China, he established and trained the new army in Tianjin's Xiaozhan, laying the foundation for a series of subsequent historical events. During the late Qing dynasty, Yuan Shikai actively promoted a series of modernization reforms during the New Policies period. However, these reforms did not fundamentally alter the fate of the Qing dynasty. When the Xinhai Revolution broke out, Yuan Shikai became an important bridge between the revolutionary forces and the Qing government. After the abdication of the Qing Emperor Puyi, Yuan Shikai became the provisional president of the Republic of China and later the first president of the Republic of China. However, by the end of 1915, Yuan Shikai's actions began to stir controversy. Despite holding the power of the presidency, he was not content with the status quo and made a shocking decision. He declared himself emperor and changed the era name to Hongxian. This move shocked and angered all sectors of society, including the military, government, business community, academia, and the working class, all of whom strongly opposed his actions. At that time, powerful figures controlling the military, such as Tang Jiao, Kai Yi, and Li Lijun, united to form the Protection of the Republic Army and prepared to use force to overthrow Yuan Shikai's imperial dreams. Yuan Shikai's dream of becoming emperor was soon overwhelmed by this wave of opposition. Ultimately, on March 23, 1916, Yuan Shikai announced the abolishment of the imperial system and restored the presidency. On June 6 of the same year, the 6th day of the 5th month in the lunar calendar, he died of illness at the age of 57. Before his death, Yuan Shikai left a last wish: bring my coffin back to my hometown and bury it at the Huanshan River. He hoped to be buried in his hometown, Huanshan village. After Yuan Shikai's death, leaders of the Beiyang government, such as Duan Qirui and Su Shichang, in order to maintain the Beiyang faction's succession position, chose to downplay the contradictions with Yuan Shikai over the imperial issue. They did not support the radical stance of the southern protection of the Republic Army. They successfully played the role of protectors of the Yuan family and even made the decision to handle Yuan Shikai's funeral with national leader status. On June 7, 1916, Li Yuanhong and Duan Qirui jointly issued an order for the arrangements of Yuan Shikai's funeral, allocating 500,000 yuan for funeral expenses. They also established a specialized funeral affairs office, called the Yuan de Zongtong Gongban Funerary Office. This office was overseen by Li Yuanhong, Duan Qirui, and Su Shichang, while the specific details of the arrangements were handled by Foreign Minister Chao Rulin, Interior Minister Wang Yitang, and Finance Minister Zhou Ziki. Yuan Shikai's family matters were managed by his eldest son, Yuan Keding. The organization of the funeral was entrusted to Yuan Shikai's mansion's chief manager, Yuan Naiquan, and the Hunan provincial inspector Tian Wenlai. To show respect for Yuan Shikai, the Beiyang government issued a nationwide mourning decree, ordering that flags be flown at half-mast across the country, schools be closed for 1 day, entertainment activities cease for 1 day, government officials stop hosting banquets for 27 days, and theaters halt performances for 7 days. These measures reflected the high respect for Yuan Shikai as the father of the nation. Yuan Shikai's funeral was arranged with great ceremony, even blending elements of royal, civilian, and national funeral traditions. His body was dressed in a dragon robe, a practice clearly following imperial tradition. The coffin cover was also made according to imperial standards. The funeral procession included both civilian and presidential ceremonial guards, making the scene very solemn. As with the Qing dynasty's imperial funerals, which involved symbolic rituals such as sprinkling clean water on the streets and laying yellow earth along the roads. Yuan Shikai's funeral closely followed these customs. On the morning of June 28, 1916, Yuan Shikai's funeral began. Workers, dressed in black fabric with black veils on their heads, used shovels to scatter yellow earth on the streets. This symbolic act was meant to pave the street. Later, workers brought large barrels of clean water and began to pour it on the roads. After the water was poured, no one was allowed to walk on the streets. A process known as cleaning the streets, a part of the Qing dynasty's traditional funeral rituals. On the morning of the funeral, as cannons roared, Yuan Shikai's coffin departed from the Huiran Hall. When the procession reached the Xinhua Gate, the original 32-man small bearers were replaced by an 80-man large bearers team, significantly expanding the scale of the entire funeral procession. At the front of the procession were 10 guiding flags. Led by Wu Bingxiang, the director of the Beijing Police Department, who led a police squad to clear the path. Following closely were an Army Honor Guard and a Navy Honor Guard, showing the military's respect for Yuan Shikai. Also part of the procession were special personnel responsible for carrying Yuan Shikai's belongings, including his throne, seals, clothing, medals, photos, antiques, and even a warhorse that he had loved during his lifetime. In addition, a ceremonial music band played an important role in the procession. The band included both the military band of the presidential palace, playing mournful music, and a group of monks and Taoists who played various ritual instruments, accompanied by fluttering prayer flags as they joined the funeral procession. In front of the coffin walked Yuan Shikai's eldest son, Yuan Keding, dressed in mourning clothes and wearing a mourning crown, holding a soul-calling banner. He was supported by 2 attendants. Other male family members also wore mourning clothes and mourning crowns, walking behind the coffin with attendants accompanying them. Yuan Shikai's wife, Lady Yu, wore mourning clothes, her head wrapped in a mourning cloth, holding a precious bottle and leading the family's women, who followed the coffin in sedan chairs. The funeral procession also included many guests of honor, who were a mix of civil and military officials, diplomatic envoys, and representatives of the Qing royal family. Their wives and Yuan Shikai's female relatives also rode in sedan chairs following the coffin. On every street the procession passed, soldiers and police were lined up in 2 rows, and people from all walks of life stood along the roadside, witnessing this grand funeral, which was truly a magnificent sight. The newly appointed president, Li Yuanhong, personally led the civil and military officials in a respectful salute at Xinhua Gate to bid farewell to Yuan Shikai. Premier Duan Chirue and others walked alongside the coffin to the Ximen station, where the funeral procession was to depart. The entire funeral procession consisted of about 5,000 people. Moreover, the train carrying Yuan Shikai's coffin was carefully decorated, with paper flowers hanging from the carriages. Workers were busy connecting these decorated carriages with the rest of the train, since the train was to travel along the Pinghan Railway to Anyang in Hunan. All other trains on the Pinghan line were ordered to stop that day to ensure the smooth progress of the funeral. When the train departed, the military fired 108 salutes to show respect. As the train carrying the coffin passed through Baoding, Handan, and other places, civil and military officials held roadside memorial ceremonies at every stop to express their respect for Yuan Shikai. Finally, Yuan Shikai's coffin was interred on August 23 in a location about 1 kilometer northeast of Zhangde, Huanshang village. Yuan Shikai's daughter, Yuan Qizhen, recalled that the funeral expenses were funded by the Beiyang government with 500,000 silver dollars, but in reality, this amount was far from enough. Besides the basic funeral expenses, the construction of the tomb and the preparation of the memorial grounds required significant funds. To make up for the shortfall, Li Yuanhong, Duan Chirue, and other leaders of the Beiyang government took the lead in donating funds. Other high-ranking officials, provincial governors, military officers, and regional commanders also contributed. with donations ranging from 2,000 yuan to as much as 10,000 yuan, ultimately raising more than 250,000 silver dollars. Regarding the name of the burial site, Yuan Shikai's eldest son, Yuan Keding, wished to call it Yuan Ling, Yuan Mausoleum, but this suggestion was opposed by Su Shichang, the then president. Su Shichang argued that although Yuan Shikai had once harbored ambitions to become emperor, he ultimately failed and abandoned the Hongxian era name. Therefore, calling the tomb Yuan Ling would seem inappropriate. Su Shichang also pointed out that the pronunciation of Ling, mausoleum, was similar to Lin, forest, and that in ancient Chinese texts, Ling and Lin were interchangeable. He suggested avoiding the use of Ling and opting for Yuan Lin, Yuan forest, instead. Ultimately, the name Yuan Lin was chosen, located in Taipingzhuang, Anyang, Hunan province. The architectural style of Yuan Lin was unique. The design of the tomb drew inspiration from the Ming and Qing imperial mausoleums, but it was smaller in scale than traditional imperial tombs. Most notably, the design of Yuan Lin integrated both Chinese and Western architectural styles. The front part of the tomb's courtyard followed the style of Ming and Qing imperial tombs, while the back portion incorporated Western architectural elements. Overall, the architecture of Yuan Lin was distinctive, maintaining the traditional solemnity while adding Western innovative features, making the tomb appear both classical and modern. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.